The word conflict or the word argument usually connotes for a lot of people a huge fight going on, people yelling or something where there's a heated exchange, people are getting angry. It's all so much more nuanced than that. It's all so much more subtle than that. We're going to talk about argument and conflict. Specifically, we're going to talk about types of conflict, how to manage conflict. We're going to briefly touch upon the conflict styles, and then I'm going to be sending you away, and you're going to examine your personal conflict style. There are 3 types of conflict: pseudo, simple, and ego. Pseudo, when we say fake or false, does not mean you're making it up. Oh, we're not really fighting, we're just playing. No, it means that you think you disagree, but you actually agree. So, for example, let's say that we're in a classroom together and I remind everybody of a deadline for a presentation or a project or a paper or whatever the assignment is. And you think that's just really messed up. There's no way that we can get all of that stuff done by such and such date. No. I'm not doing that. So you send me an email and you say exactly what you were thinking. And I say, this is no issue. You can turn it in, by our last class meeting. One of us thinks that there's a disagreement, but there's not. Or there's a misuse of a term, or somebody doesn't hear something accurately. That's what pseudo is. Ways to manage pseudo is ask others what they mean by the terms or phrases that they're using. We know this as communication scholars, that this is rooted in verbal communication, it's rooted in semantics, and if you're looking at the communication model, this is obviously noise. It's one of those types of noises, right? One of those types of noise, yeah. So ask others what they mean by terms or phrases they use. Become an active, mindful listener. Keep practicing those skills. An established and a supportive rather than defensive climate. If you don't manage pseudo, it can slip into the other types of conflict. So you also remember defensive communication as this circular around and around thing that happens. One person perceives a threat. That prevents the receiver from concentrating or decoding that message accurately. They respond in a way to protect a self-image that prompts then the self-defense response, and then that just contributes to a negative circular set of responses that just increase the defensiveness, and it goes around and around. Simple. This type of conflict occurs when people's goals or ideas are mutually exclusive or incompatible. One person wants one thing, the other person wants another thing. You wanted to go to a concert. One of your parents says, no, you're not going to that concert. Personal example for me, mother, I'm still bitter about you not letting me go to that concert when I was about 17. One person wants to go to a certain restaurant. The other person wants to go to another restaurant. One person wants more space. Dialectical tension, remember that. One person wants more space in the relationship, one person wants to be closer. Simple. Ways to manage it. Clarify perceptions. Are you seeing the same thing that the other person is seeing? Is this about you and your identity and perceptions? Or what are the real facts? Use those to support your point rather than just opinions or emotional arguments. Keep the discussion focused on the issue and not the personalities. Not managing something like simple moves into another type of type of conflict, and we don't want to do that. If you're in a small group, particularly, let's say at work, you can make the conflict a group concern rather than between the two people and ask others for information and data. Doesn't mean that you're dragging people into your drama. It means if you're in a meeting, for example, and you're noting that somebody, maybe it's you or another person with you, is wanting one particular thing or promoting this idea and someone's promoting the other idea. Hey, everybody, what do you think? What are our facts showing us? Sometimes it's better to postpone decisions until there's additional research. I really want to go to that concert. Well, how many people are going to be there? Are you going to drive by yourself? Then you can say, well, let me go find that out. Or you can say, let's not make a decision yet, Mom, on this concert until I have more information for you about the particular band I wanted to see. Still bitter am I. Ego. This is the most difficult conflict. If you don't manage the pseudo, if you don't manage the simple, it will run over you or the other person into ego. This is where we think we are being personally attacked. This is where we think there's certain threats to our identity. This is the most difficult conflict to manage. So this is the one that can get into the screaming match. You never loved me. You never trusted me. That kind of situation, right? So seek to cool the emotional climate. However you're doing that, you're stepping out of that space. You're using more proactive language. You are establishing that supportive rather than defensive climate, which we'll talk about here in a second. Perception check. Is your perception of this conflict the same as the other person's perception? This is a technique that I try to do because sometimes I don't even know, am I getting all this correctly? Am I decoding these messages accurately? So perception check is I'm thinking that you are angry with me because of this, and this. If that's not accurate, correct me where I'm wrong. Tell me what's not accurate. That's perception check. Like I said, defensive communication, establishing that supportive rather than defensive climate. We go in that circular, just goes around and around. Careful. I've already alluded to the response to this question. What is the primary reason there are challenges to and in relationships? It really starts to kind of show up in ego, but it can show up when we have challenges to our relationships in general. It starts with an I. Starts to our identity. Yeah, when we feel like the person that we perceive ourselves to be, the root of our various aspects of our identity are threatened, this can cause us to act out in ways that we wouldn't if we didn't feel like any part of ourselves was being attacked, was being threatened. So first of all, we all have what's called a preferred mode, because there's different types of conflict styles, same thing as a conflict mode. We have preferred ones that we tend to get into, that we tend to use no matter what the situation. But when we know and recognize our preferred mode, we then can also draw from the other types of modes in different situations. So when we know a certain type of mode, we can then use that for simple, or that for ego, or that for pseudo, or for different groups of people. So it makes us even healthier communicators. 5 conflict modes: avoiding, accommodating, competing, collaborating, and compromising. We're going to talk more about those very soon, but you have an assessment right now that you can access. Test your conflict mode. And then we're going to come back at some point, obviously, and discuss the different types of conflict styles. So far we have talked about types of conflict, how to manage those 3 types of conflict. You've at least learned the terminology for those 5 types of conflict styles, and you're about to assess your conflict style, your conflict mode, unless you have already. And then we'll discuss even more. You're going to be even more amazing communicators. Thank you.